guys, welcome to Paintworm channel. Today I want to talk to you about Brian Kelvin. He is a contemporary artist and he was born in 1969 in California. Brian Kelvin has his own personal translation of the world around him. In his work, eyebrows, eyes and gazes, lips, and even the spaces that surround people take on new meaning. Look at this new translation of the lips here. The eyes and gazes. Even objects like a glass, a window pane, water, and other everyday things are reinterpreted in a fresh way in his paintings. Like here, we have a glass or window pane, like here. It's similar to David Hockney's work, like when we look at his swimming pools and realize that nobody had ever seen pools and water quite the way Hockney did. In the same way, Brian Kelvin's paintings are his personal translation of the world, one that belongs entirely to him. You can see how beautiful the translations are. Here, in one place, there are bold lines and wide curves, like this. In another, soft and gentle, here, soft and gentle shadows, and elsewhere splashes of water scattered around with very quick movement, like here and here. His subjects are always portraits and human figures, whether male or female, though most are women. They all seem to be placed in the same kind of relationship with the world around them. Every portrait looks equally thoughtful, quiet, and a little sad, as if they've all found themselves in a situation where they'd rather not talk too much or make any noise. They appear more like observers of this world, watching everything in silence and with patience. They don't really try to change anything. Instead, they seem intent on accepting their place in the world, patiently, with those melancholic gazes that fall into silence. Even when they are gathered together in groups, they remain quiet and subdued. Even when they are in conversation, that sense of silence still hangs over them. It's as if they all know exactly what situation they're in, so being together or being alone doesn't really make a difference. Sometimes these portraits stare directly into the viewer's eyes, almost as if they are standing in front of a camera. The details of the lips, eyes, and teeth become more striking. It feels like in these single portraits, the painter zooms in on the smallest details, determined not to let anything slip away. Even the way light reflects off the surface of their lipstick seems important, something that must be noticed, like these parts, or the light reflection in these eyes. Although the works are not based on a straightforward representation of the objective world, certain parts of the paintings still remain faithful to realistic forms. The distortions, like the size of the eyes compared to the lips, or the proportions of the face to the width of the shoulders, are not drawn according to objective reality, yet at the same time, something like the reflection of light on the lipstick is rendered with extreme realism. So we have some parts like this spear or this button. They are totally representational, or the light reflection on the eyes or lips. Just this reflection is representational. However, the proportions of the eyes and eyebrows in relation to the rest of the face are not representational. For example, here, eyes and eyebrows are so bigger than lips or noses. These parts are non-representational. Looking at Brian Calvin's works is like walking across a bridge. On one side there's representation, and on the other side there's his personal non-objective world. At the same time, you can see a mix of surrealism and realism in his paintings. The eyes are oversized, almost reminiscent of Babylonian and Mesopotamian sculptures, just like the belief that eyes are the window to the soul, the way humans connected with the gods through their gaze. The spaces surrounding these figures can feel deeply surreal, where the moon in the sky and the blue horizon of the sea suggest an imagined world, like here, the moon and the horizon, they seem surreal. The sky in Brian Calvin's works are completely flat and two-dimensional, like medieval paintings, neither cloudy nor windy. Most of the time, there's a sun or a moon prominently displayed. Even though the sun or moon is placed in the farthest part of the background, it acts like a focal point. The area around it is so empty that in that plane your eye is drawn only to it because it's alone and there are no other elements nearby. It stands out as a point of emphasis. Here we have two-dimensional sky, and here, and moon is like a focal point. The portraits he paints are mostly young, beautiful women. Normally, you'd expect these girls to look happy and lively, but they don't. They seem worldly and calm, not caught up in the emotions and excitement of youth. Their hair and appearance are youthful, of course, and their makeup, eyeliner, lipstick, and clothing are typical of young women, but their inner selves don't feel young at all. Sometimes we see lips that are slightly parted, but this partial opening doesn't indicate communication or speaking. It's more like they're half open in reaction to surprise or wonder at an external situation. Even in the eyes, here, one can see this sense of wonder and fear, and lips, they show wonder and fear as well. Now let's take a closer look at students. If we pay attention, we can see that the size of the forms, the choice of colors, and the way they are arranged next to each other are very important. It's not only the concept or meaning that matters, but the forms themselves are equally significant. The surface of the table creates a curved form located in the lower right. Here we have a curved form of table. At the top of the painting, the figures are arranged like vertical columns next to each other. Here we have figures, they are like vertical columns. Three figures are set slightly back, their heads aligned on a horizontal line. Here we have a horizontal line of the heads. In the foreground on the left, we suddenly encounter a detailed portrait that captures the viewer's attention immediately. Here we have a portrait, it's detailed. Therefore, we can see here in this composition, we have a curved form, vertical columns, vertical forms, and horizontal line, and a detail. Well, if we look closely, we can see that once again there are verticals and horizontals in this composition. For example, the line of the window ledge here, here, and here. The brown line of the ground in the background, here and here. So we clearly notice these are horizontal lines in the work. Although these horizontals are not continuous, unbroken lines, a careful viewer understands that by connecting certain forms together, they can grasp the relationships among them and see what the placement of these forms next to one another conveys. Look at this part, for example. We have a broken line here. We can see this part, and this part. But we can connect them like this. These broken lines together and create a new line, a complete horizontal line. Or here, for example, we can connect these parts together and create another horizontal line, like this and this. But it's not only the relationship of vertical and horizontal lines that matters here. The line of the three figures' arms from shoulder to elbow and the line of the nose of the detailed portrait on the left create a diagonal rhythm and some other short lines. For example, this line, this one, and these lines are diagonal, and we have some other short lines here, here, here. They create a diagonal rhythm. The figures' heads alternate between dark and light, black, blonde, producing a kind of step-like rhythm from dark to light in an alternating sequence. Here we have step kind rhythm. We have black, blonde, black, blonde, and a kind of a step-like rhythm. We have also a set of diagonal lines coming from the reflection of light on the background windows. These lines. As well as the lines of the leaves of the potted plant placed on the table, of which we only see a small part in the lower right corner. These leaves also form diagonal lines here, even the shadow create a diagonal line here. So if we want to analyze the verticals, horizontals, and diagonals in this work, we arrive at such a structure. Here we have a set of analyzed lines that conveys the meaning of this composition in terms of form. There's also a big curved line here. Which adds a very different rhythm to the work. This curved line here is so important in composition. Parts of this painting are flat and some parts are volumetric. Sometimes a lot of attention is given to volumetric modeling, for example, in the hair of the figure wearing red or in the subtle shaping of that figure's clothing. So, this figure's hair is volumetric, or the clothing is volumetric as well. But here, this figure's clothing is flat, but the hair is volumetric. Here, the table is a flat surface, or background is flat, but or here is flat as well, just somehow a bit here is volumetric. And here is volumetric, this part. Okay. In the portraits, we sometimes encounter a blessing gesture, like here and here. It's as if the painter is reminding us that anyone can play the role of Jesus in the world. Anyone, a student, an office worker, a nurse, or anyone in any position can, through their silence, patience, and depth, embody something like Jesus. The same portraits holding beer or a Coke can, the ones with the full sun or moon behind them, also point to the sky with this blessing gesture. One of the most beautiful works is called Fence. Visually, it has values worth examining closely. One of the most striking elements of the piece is the fence at the bottom. Small diamond-shaped patterns are placed in contrast with the large, flat, simple surfaces above. Here we have the fence and here large, simple, and flat surfaces. For example, here, 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 and here. And here we have a small diamond shaped pattern like this. The red and green in the painting, which are complementary colors, are very striking in my opinion. This combination is one of the most beautiful color pairings in the history of painting. So we have here complementary colors. They are red and green. We encounter two distinct shades of green, light green and dark green. So we have here, for example, light green, here, here, and here. And here we have dark green. The green areas are relatively large and expansive, while the reds are not. The red in the painting isn't very large in area, but the question is, how does it play such a powerful role and why does it stand out so much? There are two reasons. First, it's very bright and vibrant. So this red is very bright and vibrant. Second, the lines and diamond patterns of the fence placed over it create a striking contrast here. The diamond-shaped patterns are made of very thin, dark lines that sit beautifully on top of the red. As a result, they not only create a contrast between light and dark, but they also introduce a different rhythm with the diamond shapes on an otherwise completely flat two-dimensional surface. This is why the red feels so powerful and prominent. Its effect is amplified by these two contrasts. Now we want to look for that reason what makes the green and red appear so beautiful together. The secret lies in the grays and the pale pinks in the faces and hands. Let's start by looking at the grays. First, there are some very beautiful grays in the fence here. And in some areas, they are even modeled with careful attention to volume. In the background, there's a very flat two-dimensional gray, which we also see reflected in the foreground planes. So we have here a flat two-dimensional gray. This gray gradually becomes a little shaded, gaining volume and appear in the hair of the boy on the right. Here on the right, we have another gray that is shaded and it has volume as well. Then it becomes a bit lighter a tint and shows up in the eyebrow and hair of the woman on the left. So here we have another gray, but it's brighter and it's more tint and bright, and it has volume as well. Later it becomes quite dark and blue as it enters the woman's clothing, giving it volume, and then it turns slightly cooler and bluer as it reaches the main post of the fence. So here, this gray is bluer darker, and here we have this blue and dark gray in fence. In the background, there's a gray that forms the farthest plane beyond the grass, and then we have the figures in the foreground. Just imagine if the pinks in the faces and hands weren't there, the reds, greens, and grays wouldn't appear as beautiful together. The grays would feel heavy and dark. So if we remove these pinks, we can see that grays and greens are so heavy. They feel so heavy, and this work wouldn't be so beautiful without these pinks. Now the brightness of the hands and faces makes the work energetic and vibrant. In fact, the contrast between the hands and faces and the darkness of the surrounding space creates a kind of symphony of lights and darks. Let's follow the reds a little more across the canvas. This color appears in the ears, lips, neckerchief, and forearms. We can find reds in these places. Now let's examine the verticals and horizontals. We have two fully vertical bodies and the horizontal lines, so we are mostly dealing with vertical and horizontal elements. We have two vertical bodies here and here. Two vertical lines and some horizontal lines, for example here and here. But if you pay attention, the horizon line of the grass rises slightly in this section. In this section, it rises slightly, and in this section, and dips a little in the middle. But it dips a little here in the middle. These are very subtle measures to create variety in the composition. Okay, when we look at the fence, the horizon line along its edge slopes downward from right to left. This horizon line slopes downward from right to left, like this. It's not a boring flat horizon, and that's very beautiful. The hands, however, introduce a rhythm of diagonals, like here and here. The direction of the woman's glass, which is diagonal, but opposite to the previous diagonals, like this. It's as if the diagonal of the glass creates a counter direction to maintain variety and prevent monotony in the composition. Even the lines connecting the eyes and eyebrows are horizontal, like these lines. But if you look closely, they're not a boring horizon. There's a very subtle and sensitive variation happening here. At the same time, the lines separating the upper and lower lips are very decisive, like these lines. If we connect the woman's shoulders, one is higher and one is lower, like this, creating a beautiful diagonal line. This work is really stunning and captivating. It's hard to look away. I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. If you enjoyed this video, please like, leave a comment and subscribe.